Dear students, we are taking the integumentary system and its derivatives as today's lecture. And in this particular topic, we would be comparing the skin anatomy of different type of vertebrates. As we know that skin is the largest organ that occurs in the only in the vertebrates, and it is defined as the skin covering surface covering which is easily separable from underlying muscle layer of the body wall, and it produces a number of structures. The structures which are derived from the skin, these are called as the derivatives. So skin and its various variety of structures which are derived out of skin, these form an organ system which is called as the integumentary system. And the study of integumentary system and its let's say the derivatives and its functions, that is called as dermatology. Hence, we have already talked about the basic structure of the skin, which we basic structure when we study, we take a particular typical example of mammalian skin. And the mammalian skin itself, it is composed of two main tissues. There are two main tissues. Outer tissue is the epidermis and inner tissue is dermis. Where outer tissue epidermis, it has its origin from ectoderm, whereas dermis has its origin from mesoderm. And if you look at the structure of mammalian skin, skin is composed of two layers. As I just said, this is the epidermis and here lies the dermis. So epidermis in case here in this case is thinner as compared to the thicker epidermis, and furthermore it is stratified. When we use the term stratified, that means it is epidermis is stratified. It is composed of stratified epithelium. That means it is actually composed of a number of such cells, number of layers of such cells, out of which the lowermost or innermost layer that rests on a basement membrane, that is composed of cuboidal, almost cuboidal cells, and the membrane this on which it is lying, that is called as the basement membrane, and the lowermost layer is called as stratum germinativum. While these cells, they go on flattening towards the upper end, and ultimately these layers, they get replaced, the cytoplasm of these layers that gets replaced by the keratin protein, and topmost layer that almost turns horny, and it is waterproof. This topmost layer is, let's say, the waterproof layer. And moreover, the type of the cells, the nature of the cells, that is almost it has flattened while it is going up, and it has lost the nuclei as well as the cytoplasm, but the lowermost layer, that is the stratum melpegium. This is the stratum melpegium. Melpigii, or it is also called as stratum germinativum. This layer keeps on adding new cells to the upper layers, and topmost layer, it keeps on gradually, it sloughs as our skin, it keeps on sloughing, and that gets a replacement from freshly added dividing cells from stratum germinativum. And there are certain derivatives which are derived from the stratum germinativum, such as here. This layer sinks down, giving rise to the hair follicle, and here it comes out through the pore on the top of the stratum stratum corneum. The topmost layer is called as stratum corneum. In addition to that, there are other derivatives which are derived from the skin. These are, let's say, the sudoriferous glands. The sudoriferous glands, they are typical, they open out, these sudoriferous glands, they open out by an opening into the, let's say, on the top of the horny layer. So here it is opening. This is the sweat gland associated with that of the hair follicle. Should make it with a different pen. These are the sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands. So this is the basic structure of epidermis, and whereas if you look at the lower layer, this lower layer, this is dermis. Dermis proper, it is composed of connective tissue, and here lie number of lymph vessels, the nerve endings, and of course certain bundles of collagen fibers like this. These are the bundles of collagen fibers. In addition to that, there are other fibers which are branched elastic fibers, and lying below it is a layer of subcutaneous layer. This layer is called as there is another layer, subcutaneous layer, which is composed of fat cells. So this is the structure of the skin proper. And now we talk about we take the comparative account of skin. We are taking the comparative account of skin in different vertebrates. So to start with, first of all, we'll be taking the simplest type of animal. That is, we would be talking about branchiostoma. Right? So in branchiostoma, which is, let's say, that is also called as lancelet. The lancelets, they have a simplest type of integument amongst the chordates, an epidermis that consists of single layer of columnar cells. This is the epidermis, which is composed of single layer of epidermis. So here it is epidermis. Whereas it lies on the, of course it lies on the basement membrane. I'll just write it in short, but you don't have to write in short. You just write it completely. Basement membrane. And all these cells, they are live cells. They are not dead cells. They are unlike. They are live cells. And amongst them, in between in the skin of branchiostoma, there are present certain single cellular mucous cells which open out by the pore onto the skin. And these are called as, these are simply the unicellular gland cells. Furthermore, the columnar cells, these columnar cells, they are ciliated in larva. However, these cilia are shed in case of adults, and the columnar layer, it secretes a cuticle lining. In the adults, this is the cuticle lining, and cuticle is perforated to excrete out the secretion of these gland cells. The purpose of these gland cells, they secrete mucus and they keep the body of the organism moist. Look, we have to When we are talking about the skin, some points we have to keep in mind. We have to keep in mind what is the habitat of the animal. So branchiostoma being a very small animal, small organism, cephalochordate, lancelet, its another name is lancelet. They are aquatic animals. So aquatic animals need to conserve water. They need to hold the mucus layer over the body. So that is the purpose of this cuticle. Whereas the lower lying layer, that is dermis, and dermis is composed of soft connective tissue. This layer is the dermis layer, connective tissue, and it is also it is divided into two layers. The outer one, which is a thin compact layer. This is the outer layer. Thin compact layer. I think you will be able to differentiate. This layer is called as outer layer is the compact layer, and inner layer is spongy layer. And within the spongy layer, it is a having different type of it has, let's say, blood vessels. Let's make it with a different color. I'll make it with a different color. These are the blood vessels. Then it has certain fibers like this. These are the fibers. So this layer, this is the simplest kind of skin. Now the next second organism which we are talking about is cyclostomes. These come under Agnatha, as I already gave you in the introduction in the first chapter, and they are also called as round mouth fish. Example being petromyzon. In case of petromyzon, or let's say in case of cyclostomes, the integument is, it shows distinct advancement over the lancelet. Epidermis has become stratified. Now, how it has become stratified, we'll have an idea. I'll just show you that epidermis is not regular like single columnar cells. Rather, it is stratified, made up of, lowermost layer is made up of the cuboidal cells resting on the basement membrane, and this is the lowermost layer. Stratified means having many layers, and these cells are almost more or less similar, and they have not lost their nuclei, and they are it has become, although stratified, but there is no, as such, no stratum corneum is there. No stratum corneum is there. It is not present. While there is no of dead cells, it is not present. The surface layer, this layer is still living. The topmost layer, let's say, let's make it like this. This is still living, and they have nuclei in them. Means they are living and they are quite active, and they secrete cuticle over it. So this is the cuticle. Abundant unicellular mucous glands, they occur. So let's make the unicellular mucous glands. These are the mucous glands, and they secrete slime. Dermis, this, the lower layer is the dermis, which is thinner, and it consists of connective tissue fibers and horizontal bands of, there are horizontal bands of, these are the horizontal bands of collagen fibers, and which are interrupted by these vertical bands in between, and vertical strands which are called as mycometa. And to form that lie between the, these are the myotomes, which lie between the myotomes. Mycometa are the vertical strands. The dermis, it contains, also contains chromatophores. So let's make it with a different color. Just make it with a different color. The chromatophores, these are stellate shaped or star shaped cells lying in the dermis, and the purpose of the chromatophores is that they contain pigment, and skin color can change from pale to dark and vice versa. So that was about the skin of the cyclostomes. Then we have the skin of fish. Now the skin of fish Fish integument is practically very similar to cyclostomes. The stratum germinativum, it contains almost cuboidal cells. So let's make it. These are the cuboidal cells.